Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the games that are set to release in 2026 that I'm most excited for. As this is my first video for this year, I want to wish everyone a happy new year, wishing you happiness, health, love, success, and lots of fun. Before we get into the list, I'll take a moment to say a special thank you to my members. I appreciate all of you so much, and your support allows me to keep going. Joining as a member would help the channel a lot, but of course only do so if you want to and if you can afford it. I'm always grateful even if you just like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment. I'm going to keep the list fairly short for a few reasons. For one, I have very specific preferences in games, so that means that I'm only ever interested in about a dozen or so games each year, maybe less depending on what's releasing. For another, I want to share with you the games I'm actually excited for, instead of padding the list out with games that I have my eye on, but which I'm not sure I'll like. The few games I picked are titles that I'm going to buy immediately when they release, or in the case of the first game, I've already bought it by supporting its Kickstarter. Speaking of, Cat Cafe Manager 2 is a cozy management game where, as I'm sure you can guess, you manage a cat cafe. The first game is one of my favorite things to play when I'm tired but still want to play something to relax. It's a very indie game in the sense that it was developed by a super small team and it still has some quirks, but it's also, glowing with love. And from what I've seen already from the Kickstarter updates, the devs are working very hard to improve on the first game's features, add new fun elements such as kittens and more detailed character customization, among many other things. CCM2 is also transitioning to a semi-3D style, with characters still having a 2D look but the environments being 3D in a very interesting and beautiful combination. Personally, I wouldn't have minded if the second game was also fully 2D, but I can understand that the devs wanted that sense of depth and wanted to make something a bit more ambitious for their second project. I believe CCM2 should be releasing sometime in the second half of 2026, maybe closer toward the end of the year, according to what I remember from the Kickstarter. But of course, delays can happen, especially for small indie teams that may have issues with underestimating how long development takes. But I'm hoping that it will release this year because I've been looking forward to playing it ever since it was first announced. Esoteric Ebb is a fantasy D&D inspired disco-like CRPG where you are a cleric uncovering a political conspiracy that is developed by Christopher Bodegard. I actually checked out an early demo of this a long time ago in a first impressions video, and I liked a lot of what I was seeing. There were still some things to figure out at the time, but it's been over a year and a half since then, and I've looked at the updated demo, which is honestly amazing. So I'm very excited to find out how the story goes, and I'll be buying this immediately upon release. I'm always on the lookout for more disco-likes or just good story and character-focused CRPGs, especially if they're made by solo devs or small teams, because you know that means they're a labor of love and are extremely likely to have something unique about them. Esoteric Ebb will release in the first quarter of this year, sometime in spring, so that's fairly soon. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'll definitely make a full review when it comes out. Ardenfall is an RPG that gives me Morrowind vibes and is being developed by Spellcast Studios, a small team of indie devs who have spent many years on this project. The visual design is stunning, the atmosphere is really cool, and the story and lore seem promising. Not sure exactly when this will be releasing other than sometime in 2026, and it will be releasing in early access first, but there is a demo out on Steam if you'd like to check it out. The current demo is from December 2025, very recent, so if you're interested, I do recommend playing it for yourself to see if Ardenfall is the kind of RPG you'd like. I think that as long as the price is affordable, under €30 or so, this is going to be a very nice indie RPG to pick up and play. The Blood of Dawnwalker is an open-world RPG where you play as Cohen, a half-human, half-vampire in 14th century Europe, fighting to save his family. The most interesting aspect of this game for me is the time limit for the main quest. I love that you can't put off the main quest forever. If you don't save Cohen's family by the deadline, they will be killed. However, the game won't just end, so that's fascinating to see how the story progresses if you choose not to save them. The best part is that you're free to explore the world to your heart's content, because time only passes when you engage in actual activities like quests. I think this is the perfect way to make the game feel like it still has stakes, without making it too stressful for people who don't like having a time limit. From what I've seen of the gameplay the devs have shown off, Dawnwalker looks amazing and just like the type of RPG I enjoy, with choice and consequence, multiple ways to approach quests, and the exploration seems like it's going to be tons of fun. And exploration is one of the biggest strengths of open world games in my opinion, especially when it comes to interesting towns or cities, castles, ruins, crypts, and the like. Considering this is a historical fantasy game, I'm expecting there's going to be a lot of cool man-made places like this to explore. I'm super curious to see how they're going to blend history with the fantastical elements of vampires and potentially other creatures in Magic. And also, as a Romanian person, I'm extremely curious just how much Romanian history will be included since this takes place in the Carpathian Mountains. Not sure when Dawnwalker will come out, but I can't wait to play it. Finally, there are a few games that I'm very much looking forward to that don't yet have a release date or year announced, but which I do think have a decent chance to release in 2026. The Life and Suffering of Prince Jerian is a visual novel / life sim RPG that is a sequel to the unique and beloved The Life and Suffering of Sir Bronte. If you enjoy good writing in games with interesting choice and consequence and a striking visual style, I highly recommend you give the first game a look if it somehow passed you by. I loved a lot of the things about the first game: the story, the characters, the lore, the visual style. There was one thing I didn't like, which ended up souring the experience for me a little bit, which is that it's in essence a maths game. The choices you make give you points towards certain stats or your willpower, or take away from other stats or your willpower. So once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it, and it ends up losing that RPG magic and feels instead like a management game. But even so, there were extremely interesting scenes and choices and consequences that I thoroughly enjoyed, so even if the sequel ends up being similar in this regard, I'm still going to like it. But I am hoping that the devs are going to refine the gameplay to make it a bit less numbers dependent. They've been working on Prince Jerian for quite a while now, since it was announced in 2024, so I think there's a very high chance it will release sometime in 2026. Fable is a fantasy RPG, a reboot of the Fable series. I'm cautiously optimistic about this one because from the trailer we saw a while ago when it was teased, it seems to have held on to the distinctive British humor that Fable is known for. However, I also know that this game has been in the works for a significant amount of years, and that can suggest development troubles. I love the first Fable game, it's one of my favorite RPGs and just games in general, so this is one of those IPs where I have very high and specific expectations, and if the new Fable will be too different in a weird way from how I think of the Fable series, I will be very disappointed. I'm trying to temper my expectations, but I need the choice and consequence to be there, the good and evil system that changes the way your character looks, the landlord simulator and trading system with merchants that allows you to get rich if you want to engage with it that way, funky characters and quests and items. I can live without the money-making part, though it will be weird to play a Fable game without it. No idea when exactly the new Fable will release, but I do hope it will be this year since I'm very curious to see what they've done with it. Finally, Mandrake is a fantasy farming sim RPG by Fail Better Games, who you may know from Sunless Sea and Sunless Skies and their Fallen London IP. This game is a bit of a departure from them, both in terms of setting and gameplay, but I know that it's going to have more of a focus on story and likely also choice and consequence since that is what Fail Better are known for. So even though normally I'm not into farming sims, I think if anyone can pull off a game in this genre that appeals to people who are mostly into RPGs, it would be them. The visuals are also stunning from what I've seen so far of the game, and there's an interesting concept of agriculture and gardening being a form of magic that only some people can do, so I expect that the gameplay of it will reflect that and feel a bit more fantastical than your run-of-the-mill crops. Even if this ends up not being totally my cup of tea, I'm absolutely giving it a shot when it releases, since I've played and enjoyed all of Fail Better's games so far, and I want to support this small team from the UK who has been surviving independently for all these years. These have been the games likely to release in 2026 that I'm most excited for. I do have my eye on a few other titles, such as the Gothic 1 remake, Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis, the Bureau of Fantastical and Arcane Affairs, as well as a few smaller games that I think may be fun, but won't necessarily be my top games for the year. It's also possible some random game will come out of nowhere and knock my socks off, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm curious to know what games you're personally looking forward to, and whether you're interested in any of the games I mentioned, so do share your list of games you're keeping your eye on this year down below if you'd like. I hope you found my list of upcoming games I'm excited for in 2026 fun or interesting. If you enjoyed this, stick around for future discussion videos, reviews, challenges, and guides I plan to make about games I care about. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, or maybe become a channel member. Everything helps. This has been B Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.